You're watching Sky News live from Windsor, where they're clearing up after yesterday's royal wedding. Heading into their future together, but Harry and Meghan's honeymoon is on hold, with the new Duchess of Sussex to begin royal duties this week. The designer of Meghan's dress speaks of her pride of being part of such a historic moment.
Also today on Sky News, a minute's silence ahead of the anniversary of the Manchester bombing as victims of terrorism call on the public to unite to defeat the extremists. Hawaii's Big Island volcano claims its first serious injury, while thousands more are forced to flee their homes. Investigators look for answers. Flight recorders recovered from the plane that crashed near Havana Airport, killing 110 people. The Culture Secretary admits the government has limited powers over social media companies as he tries to make Britain the safest online. And in Cannes, there's a fierce warning from one of Harvey Weinstein's accusers to members of the festival audience.
You know who you are, but most importantly, we know who you are. And we're not going to allow you to get away with it any longer.
Hello and good afternoon from a beautiful and sunny Windsor. Production was taking place, but as Lorna was telling us, not too long to rest for the newly married couple, because we will be seeing them next on Tuesday as they attend a Buckingham Palace garden party in honour of the Prince of Wales's 70th birthday, the first official engagement for the new Duchess of Sussex. But for now, from Windsor, back to you in the studio. We'll have lots more coming up throughout the afternoon.
OK, Sarah, thank you. Now, a group of terror attack survivors and relatives are calling for the public to help tackle the hatred which causes terrorism. The signatories include the widow of Fusilier Lee Rigby and the brother of Martin Hett, who was killed in the Manchester Arena bombing. It comes on the same day as a minute's silence was held at the Great Manchester Run in tribute to those who died in last year's terror attack. Nick Martin has this report.
Yes, this is a group that has been put together in the last year. It consists of people who have been affected by terrorism, either lost loved ones like Brendan Cox, whose MP wife was murdered, of course, in Yorkshire. Focus more on how this place came together, and that really is the spirit of what we're seeing here today as thousands of people run around the city, and I have to say it's glorious weather for it.
The Culture Secretary, Matt Hancock, has admitted that the government doesn't have the power it needs over social media companies after 10 firms snubbed his invitation for talks. Well, the 14 largest companies were invited to a meeting with the Cabinet Minister, but just 4 of them attended. And Mr Hancock has now announced new laws will be introduced to tackle the internet's Wild West to make Britain the safest place in the world to be online. Well, now we can speak to Carolyn Bunton, who's the General Manager of Internet Matters. Very good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon. So
do you think the government will manage this? I mean, it's a huge task, isn't it? Can they get a grip on things?
I think they've been really working hard with the social media companies to try and almost impose self-regulation, but clearly that's not working. So I think we really welcome their aspiration to try and legislate for this and actually put some consistent ground rules in place for all social media companies to operate by.
Now, there are lots of positives to social media, but we are focusing, I suppose, on the negatives here. What are the main issues that we're seeing? I
think we're seeing parents are telling us that they're really concerned about their children's well-being. We had over 60% of parents saying that was a particular concern at social media, and almost 1 in 5 actually say their children had actually experienced a mental health problem as a result of being on social media. I think more research needs to be done, because clearly to try and sort of lay the blame firmly and squarely at the foot of social media, I think there's lots of dynamics that are going on. But there's clearly lots of issues that children face that we need to be addressing collectively.
So what do you think the government needs to do?
I think they need to bring everyone together. I think it's good that they're looking at a code of practice for social media companies. I think that also not just embraces the big companies who are actually working hard in this space already, but some of the smaller apps and services that children use. So I think that's really good. I think most importantly, though, I think we really believe this is a behavioural issue. You know, children will always take risks. Children will always find ways around getting on things. So you can try and regulate and use technology to get yourself out of these situations, but ultimately this is a behavioural issue, and I think we need to give parents and children the education that they need in this space.
And we're hearing that 10 firms snubbed the Culture Secretary's invitation.
Yeah.
It's a lot. I mean, do you think that these companies actually want to make change?
I think that the pace that the technology develops sometimes outstrips their capacity to deal with what they've got. You know, we talk about sort of global adoption rates on things, and something like Pokemon Go have 5 million users in 2 weeks. So it's a massive, when you're dealing with that amount of content, it can be hard to keep up. But they have an obligation and a duty of care to keep our children safe, so I think they need to work hard in that space to do that.
And what are the tips for parents, I mean, watching at home? I mean, how can they make simple measures?
Yeah, the most important thing is to stay across what your children are doing online, play an active interest, have regular conversations. There are lots of technical tools that parents can use, so we'd encourage parents to think about that, like privacy settings and where you are, your geolocation settings, so use those as well. But most importantly, just keep in touch with your children and what they're doing and talk about the risks.
Good tips. Carolyn, thanks ever so much for coming in.
Thanks.
Appreciate it. Well, let's take a look at some of the day's other news, shall we now? And a man believed to be in his 20s has been fatally stabbed in South London overnight. He was found with injuries on Upper Green East in Mitcham, but died at the scene. A 44-year-old man has been arrested over the incident, and police have launched a murder investigation. A man's been charged with the murder of an 85-year-old woman in East London. Rosina Coleman was discovered on Tuesday morning in her home in Romford. Paul Prause will appear in court on Monday. Court documents have revealed more about a school shooting in Texas that left 10 people dead. 17-year-old student Demetrius Paguzzi remains in custody after being charged with murder. 8 students, including an exchange student from Pakistan, and 2 teachers are among the dead. An experimental Ebola vaccine will be administered to thousands of residents in the Democratic Republic of Congo's northwest tomorrow to try and control an outbreak there, where 26 people have now died from the disease and more cases are continuing to be confirmed. The government's emergency response fund has been boosted to around £3 billion. You're watching Sky News. Coming up in the sport.
Go to Envirophone. It totally makes sense.
Welcome back. Let's cross over now to the Sky Sports News studio for an update.
This programme is brought to you by Vitality Health and Life Insurance. Getting active brings its own rewards.
Batteries must have run out.
Good afternoon. Chelsea head coach Antonio Conte is...
And that's the end of the show. I'm off for a biscuit. Anyone fancy?
Well, let's get a check on the weather now, shall we?
From the clear blue sky of a Doha morning to the fresh autumn breeze in the city of love.
Well, away from the northwest, there's plenty of warm sunshine around today, with temperatures a notch higher than yesterday, perhaps reaching the mid-20s in central areas. It'll also stay pretty warm as we head into next week. This afternoon, it will remain largely dry with sunny spells across England and Wales, although cloud may build from the west later on. Across Scotland and Ireland, there'll be more cloud with outbreaks of rain. It will be pretty cool and breezy, particularly around western coasts. However, it will turn drier in eastern Scotland later on. Overnight, the rain across Ireland and western Scotland will become heavier and more persistent for a time. England and Wales will remain largely dry with clear spells, but low cloud is likely around eastern coasts. Looking ahead to tomorrow, after a rather wet morning across western Scotland and Ireland, the rain will gradually clear through the afternoon. Elsewhere, though, it'll be warm and sunny, although there is a risk of isolated heavy showers and thunderstorms developing across central southern areas. Looking ahead, the northwest will become brighter by Tuesday, but still the risk of isolated thunderstorms further south.
The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
You're watching Sky News. Coming up, what will the first mixed-race member of the royal family mean for Britain's ethnic minorities?
Those are kept under wraps, but we will bring you all the developments here from Windsor throughout the day. Becca.
OK, Sarah, thank you. Now, 20 priests were among 110 people who died in a plane crash in Cuba. A flight data recorder has been found after Cuba's worst aviation disaster for 30 years. 3 women who were pulled alive from the wreckage are the only known survivors, as Dan Whitehead now reports.
Deep amongst the charred remains, the search for answers continues. This was Cuba's worst air disaster in decades.
Residents on Hawaii's Big Island have been given face masks and told to take shelter after warnings that the volcano could become more violent within hours. About 35 homes have been destroyed since its eruption over 2 weeks ago. Sky's James Matthews has the details.
They don't know when it will stop.
Now, voters in Ireland will decide later on this week whether to relax the country's strict abortion laws. They'll be asked whether they want to remove the 8th Amendment from the Irish Constitution and let the government bring in unrestricted access to a termination in the first 12 weeks of pregnancy. Well, the latest polling suggests a lead for the Yes campaign to end what is a near-total abortion ban. Well, a Sky Data poll of people in Ireland suggests that 47% support legalised abortion, while 37% oppose it. Faith makes the big difference. While there's a similar split among Catholics, people who attend church at least once a month are strongly opposed. And more people who say their political views are influenced by religion are backing a no vote, compared to those who say their politics have nothing to do with religion and who say that they'll vote yes. Well, there are also differences between younger and older voters, with the younger ones more likely to support a change to the law. And education also plays a vital role, as well, as those with degrees are more likely to support a yes vote. Well, the Irish Prime Minister said the results were positive for the Yes campaign. Well, let's go live now, shall we, to Sky's Darren McCaffrey, who's in Ireland for us. What's the situation there on the ground, Darren?
Well, actually, we're in County Offaly, which is one of the most Catholic counties in Ireland, according to them.
OK, Darren, thank you. You're watching Sky News. Coming up in the sport, after beating Novak Djokovic, can Rafa
store your pet today?
Welcome back. Let's get a check now on all the day's sports.
Good afternoon. We start with some breaking news, and the former world heavyweight champion Tyson Fury has announced the opponent for his comeback fight. That's better. There's more on Sky Sports News, and we're back later.
You're watching Sky News. Coming up, a look at yesterday's royal celebrations of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. More coming up just after this short break.